This episode of Walt Disney World Today is sponsored by Small World Vacations. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners, and they're recommended by MouseSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars, so get your free price quote from Small World Vacations at www.wdwvacations.com, where the magic begins.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, April 23rd, 2007, and this is episode 247 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hotchford from mgmstudios.org. On the show today, we have Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Hiya, buddies.
And we also have on the show today Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
Now I am the ruler of all the ocean. The waves obey my every whim. The sea and all its spoils bow to my power.
That would be Ursula from Voyage of the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, Ursula from the Muppets.
On today's show, we're actually doing a follow-up to episode 244 where we discussed free dining, and there's a lot of our listeners emailed us with their comments, and a lot of people have strong opinions on free dining and whether or not it's a good value or not. And we had a discussion on it in episode 244, and for a link to that, I'll put that in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go further into free dining and discuss a little bit more, because we were kind of pressed for time between that and something else that we were talking about. And let's start off today's show from an email from Gabriella, who writes, "Hi everyone. I'll start off with the traditional I love the great show, but you see, to have pretty effective answering questions really. In light of all the questions on Disney Dining Plan, I thought I'd give a little advice on my recent trip. I went with two of my friends, all high school seniors, and I can't tell you how much we love the Disney Dining Plan. I used it last summer, free dining was offered, and we tried it again and loved it. We all like to think that we have somewhat refined palates, and we really maxed out on great food. Some of the highlights were Norway, I know it's a buffet, but it was fabulous, Alfredo's, Boma, and Wolfgang Puck's. We also loved the Tangerine Cafe for one of the counter services, and Wolfgang Puck's Express was delicious. We more than exceeded the 40-day $1 cost that it cost. One dinner in particular added up to $200 between 3 people. Needless to say, it was a bargain. We are normally light eaters, but enjoyed being able to get a taste of everything on this trip." So what do you guys think?
Well, the thing is that when you're talking about free dining, I think that anyone who is signing up for free dining has to do their homework. And obviously Gabrielle has done her homework. They knew where to go to get the best bang for their free dining buck, so to speak. I think that a lot of people need to keep in mind that when they do free dining, if they are there during the free dining period, then hopefully when they made their reservations, they made them around 180 days ahead of time so that they can make reservations. I think that's the key here, that Gabriella and her friends were able to enjoy free dining and make the best of it, because hopefully I'm guessing that they knew they were going to be there and they were able to make their ADRs. I think that's a very key point, Matt.
I would agree with you, Mike. Certainly you have to plan ahead. This isn't something you can do last minute. And when you're dealing with free dining as opposed to regular dining plan, now you're dealing with an elevated amount of people who are making advanced dining reservations, because there's an elevated amount of people on the dining plan in general who are, a lot of these people are trying to take advantage of it. And this is the point that I'm going to come back to over and over again when it comes to free dining, as well as the dining plan in general, but especially free dining, is that you're getting the food for free. And she said that in one dinner they saved about $200 between 3 people, which is great. But it comes back to your resort and the fact that you're paying full rack rates for your resort.
That's
and
right.
She didn't say where she did not say where she stayed, but it's been, I don't know if someone made a point on this show, or perhaps it was made in the show notes, that free dining really, you get more savings, quote unquote, from it when you're staying at a value resort versus staying at, say, even a moderate or a deluxe resort.
That's true. The only way you can argue that would be if you happen to stay at a moderate resort during value season. Maybe you can say, okay, that bodes well for you. But you're right. If you're paying rack rate for a deluxe resort, then you're not really saving that much money, because you're probably paying more than if you had just stayed at a regular. You had stayed at a room and you had gotten, let's say, a AAA discount or an annual pass holders discount, and just paid full price for your meals.
Yeah. Well, we've got someone posted in the show notes for episode 244. This is by SW Mom, whose actual real name is Sue. And writes, I just have to say I totally agree with the dining plan is way too much food. We had free dining in December 2005 and felt like it was just wasted so much. They boxed up desserts and stuff a couple nights, which then got thrown away anyway because there was more food the next day. Even with character meals, it wasn't worth it. Of course, at the time we were mainly 1 credit and not 2. The other thing is that it is a lot of food. And I say, you save a lot of money because you say, well, look what we got for for the meal. And the counter service and the full service meals are always more food than I would ordinarily order if I was paying out of pocket. And it's just that's another point. Aside from the fact that you're paying the rack rate for the hotel, but really my second point of contention against the free dining plan is also that you're going to be getting. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if it fits your palate, then that's obviously not an issue. But for most people I've run into, I think you said that you mentioned this in the past, Mike, that you get a lot more food than most people tend to order if they were paying for it themselves.
Yeah, and I don't understand how that works, but that's how it works. You get so much food, and I don't know about anybody else. I don't know about you and Mike, but after the first 3 or 4 days down there, if I'm there for a week or maybe a week and a half, after the first 2 or 3 days, it's like I really don't want to eat 3 meals a day. I'm maybe getting one. Maybe I'm going for one sit-down meal and maybe a counter service, or maybe by the 3rd day I'm just doing counter service, and every other day I'm doing sit-down meals, because you just can't eat that much. Yeah, you're going through the parks and you're burning energy or whatever, but you're absolutely right. It just seems like there's just too much food, and it always seems like I have some credits left over. I'm driving to the airport and I'm looking and I'm thinking, gee, I had all these left over, but I just couldn't eat that much food.
You're right.
And that's the thing. If you have those credits and you don't eat them, you feel like you have to eat them just because you have those credits.
Exactly.
Like, how many times have you skipped lunch when you're paying, and you say, you know what, I don't feel like eating lunch.
It's not worth it.
Right. But if you have these credits, now you're saying, well, you know what, maybe I better use the credits and eat the lunch. So you wind up eating stuff you don't want.
Hey, perfect example is dessert on your counter service thing. I never get dessert with counter service. I don't know if it's just me. I just don't do it. I get the entree. I get a drink.
Yeah.
And that's fine for me. I don't know how many desserts I threw out last year when I was on the free dining plan.
But Matt, you got to try the carrot cake at what do you call it there? Tusker House. Try the carrot cake at Tusker House, then come back and talk to me.
All right, I'll try that one out. Kathy from New Jersey, who writes, hey guys, great show. I just listened to episode 244, the free dining episode, and I was wondering if you think me and my family should go on the dining plan. We are staying at Pop Century in June with me and my 2 kids, ages 14 and 15. We always eat at the food court for breakfast. For lunch and dinner, we sometimes eat at a sit-down, and other times we eat at a counter service. Do you think we should get the dining plan? Obviously, this isn't the free dining plan. This is the dining plan in general. I'm going to go with no, because it doesn't sound like they usually would be eating a sit-down every day.
Yeah, that's the thing that they have to realize, that if you don't eat, if let's say you go 1 day without a sit-down, well, now you're facing 2 sit-downs in 1 day. And unless you're doing maybe a breakfast and then a snack and then a nice sit-down dinner, you're going to be backing up again. You're going to have excess credits by the end of your trip, and you won't be able to, I'd hate to see someone get within 1 or 2 days of their final day, and all of a sudden they're faced with, oh my God, I have to use 3 sit-down meals today before I leave. There's just no way.
Yep, that's a good point.
Well, I take that back. You could do it depending upon where you go.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, Matt, let's say you had a breakfast. Let's say you had breakfast at Kona, and let's say you had lunch at the Plaza, and let's say you had dinner at Rose and Crown. I don't think that those 3 restaurants would tend to give you too much food, but you got to be really creative if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, so you're Mike, you're gonna advocate against not getting the dining plan for Kathy?
The only argument against what you said, Matt, would be that she's got 2 teenagers.
Yeah, 14 and 15.
Well, the teenage boys or teenage girls?
I'm
going to make a very sexist remark here.
Make the sexist remark, and then I'll tell you.
I was going to say boys eat more than girls.
Well, there you go.
And if she's got
It's
2
true.
teenage boys, then I'd say go for it.
Next email is from another member of the www.today.com user group. It's a Tiki guy, known as JG, who writes. He wrote actually a pretty long post over there. You can read it on the site. But he wrote, this dining promotion makes it easier for people to bring others to Disney without all the problems that dining could cause without it. My uncle is bringing his 3 adult children, their spouses, and grandchildren to Walt Disney World during this promotion. If not for this promotion, either the kids would have had to pay for their own food, or he would have to foot the bill. Those who are doing better would probably want to eat at Le Cellier or the Coral Reef, while others with less money would prefer to eat only on the cheap. If my uncle was paying and one of the kids ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, he might not say anything, but I know it would bother him. This way, no one cares what anyone orders. Maybe by getting the cheapest thing on the menu, you're only getting the $30 worth of food per day. It's still a good deal for free most of the time. They'll get at least $35 worth of food, even if you just do a breakfast buffet and a counter service burger with a drink and a snack, once you factor in tax and tip. It's an interesting point that he brings up there about, it's kind of the free dining plan, at least, and to a lesser extent the dining plan is the great equalizer, and you're bringing in people, and if not everyone can, like you said, sometimes you say, oh, let's go eat at an upper class restaurant like say Le Cellier, and someone else says, I'm sure you've been in the situation where someone wants to go to a restaurant and you'd prefer to, you've been kind of, you want to keep the cost down, so you'd rather eat at, a beer garden or something like that, where the cost is going to be a little bit less. But he brings it, I don't know, what do you think about his point, Jay? Mike. Jay's point, Mike.
Which Mike?
Well, either of you.
I think he makes a good point saying that the promotion has enabled them to go down and do certain things, and I do agree that it's nice if I'm down there and I meet a couple of friends and hey, we're all on the dining plan, okay, let's go wherever we want to go. There's no hesitation. There's no like, gee, I don't know what this person's budget is. I don't know what that person's budget is. So I don't want to say, hey, let's go to Le Cellier or let's go to Alfredo's instead of saying, hey, let's go to I don't know, Tusker House, beer garden or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So yeah, you make a good point. But usually, I mean, if it's families, they're all usually all on the same kind of plan. So
yeah. You also brought up a point which we haven't got to, which is the fact that you have to buy a Magic Your Way ticket, and as an annual pass holder, I know that all 3 of us here are. Jay writes, as for needing to get a Magic Your Way ticket, the way I look at tickets, they're like money. I ordered 2 7-day park hoppers this time, though I'll probably upgrade to a 10-day no-expiration ticket with water and fun and more, and use it for my next 2 trips, including Mousefest. There are 3 things that are certain in life: death, taxes, and Disney raising the price of park tickets. So getting one today, even if you don't use it now, is a good thing because the price will go up in the future. I used it last year when I used the free dining. I had to buy the Magic Your Way ticket, and I ended up using it towards my annual pass renewal. So, it was just the money, obviously was going to be spent either way. So, it's an interesting thing to do. The only problem with that, Jay, is that there's some people who can't afford to, buy a 10-day and add the no expiration option, because it is a lot of money now. You're taking the hit now as opposed to you're taking the hit, later on in a future trip. Another thing to keep in mind, he's got his next 2 trips, including Mousefest. I guess he's just saving himself some sort of convenience here. But if he, it sounds like I don't know how long his trip is going to be exactly, how many days he's going. But, if he's going for, only 7 days, that leaves 3 days over plus the water and fun stuff. So he's not going to, he's not going to save that much more money at Mousefest, because tickets might go up a little bit between now and then, but I suspect the greater value in buying your tickets, like a 10-day ticket, and sitting on it for, is really sitting on it for a couple of years and saving the money later. Before you were an annual pass holder, did you tend to buy tickets in advance and, kind of like invest in them, if you will?
No. We would just show up and, before 2000, we used to get the passes through the DVC. And then we started buying them. I would buy basically as we checked in.
Yeah.
That's how I would buy them.
I mean, that's how I did it too. I mean, it's hard to take that hit, then.
It is.
And I mean, people like us, who go fairly often. I mean, I guess it's a little bit easier. But even back then, before I was an annual pass holder, I couldn't, predict when my next couple of trips were, and
I still can't.
Next email is from Brant in Alberta, Canada, who writes, "Hey guys, my wife and I are leaving for Walt Disney World on April 28th for 2 weeks. We've already started talking about heading down in September for the free dining. I know your views on it. We probably don't make the best use out of it, but if we're going back in September, it'll probably be a good idea for us to get annual passes. I'm wondering, how should we go about upgrading to the annual pass while we're down there, while preserving the dining plan? Can we upgrade to an annual pass as soon as we basically get there and simply play the difference between our current package and the annual passes? Basically, what is the best, easiest, most economical way to get annual passes when we arrive and still get the dining plan?"
Wow. So he wants to use. He wants to get
the dining plan. Yeah, he wants to use his tickets.
And then he wants to. Okay, so the question is,
But
does he? Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, he's leaving on April 28th, so he's got trip A, and then the free dining, which he'll opt into, would be coming in September. Because if he was going down for September and he was going to buy an annual pass, then the easy solution would be just buy a one-day, regular old ticket as your media, and then just use those tickets and upgrade once you get to the parks to annual passes, and it won't matter because you'll be booking a Magic Your Way package, and then you'll be getting the annual passes later on. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he's coming down in April, and he probably wants to buy an annual pass for this April trip. So it's a little bit. The only thing this is the first thing that came to mind, Mike, and I don't know. Tell me what you guys both and either of you think. I was going to say that you buy the annual pass here and for your April trip, you buy the free dining plan if you want the free dining plan in September, and you just take those tickets that you have to buy, the one-day park ticket like Mary Waring mentioned back in episode 244, and use those towards your annual pass renewals when they come up next April. The other thing that I'll say about this is that I don't think maybe necessarily you need to get the dining plan, and you can save a lot more money with your annual passes by getting, get the Disney Dining Experience card. Yeah. Maybe go during a time of the year that I don't know if it's convenient for you that time of year, because free dining, the period where you have it isn't exactly the most popular time of the year to go to Walt Disney World. I don't know. What do you think? This
is interesting, Matt, because you really got to put something like this on paper and really compare it. Number one, you have to look at, if I agree with you about the annual pass. I would purchase the annual pass for the April vacation and use that in September to get an annual pass rate at the resort, and number two, I would get a Disney Dining Experience card. I think that he's going to make out better doing it that way because of several reasons. Number one, he will be purchasing his admission for April and for September once. And he's going to make out well with that. I'm assuming that the total number of days are going to be close to 10. So, he's already hit the break-even point with that. Number two, with the annual pass, he will be getting the annual pass rate at the resort in September. And by the way, he could get it in April if he can figure out a way to do that. So you've got that working for you too. You're not going to pay the full rack rate in September. He's going to have an annual pass, so he's going to get that deal. He's also going to be able to have Disney dining. So in my opinion, I'd go with the annual pass without the Disney dining.
Yeah, I that's why I think you're going to save more money there. Obviously, it would be ideally. Since he said April 28th was the day of the trip, and he sent this email like last week, so I wasn't really late on this. But if he had bought his annual pass earlier and gotten an annual pass discount on this trip in April, then he'd be saving even more money. And
exactly, the free because he could use the Disney dining for this trip as well.
Yeah, he could have made out. So you take the savings you've been making this trip, the savings you would have been making in the September trip, and with that and the Disney Dining Experience card, I bet you'll save more money than with the free dining because of of all the aggregate costs that come with it. The one last mention over here, one last message here on the wdwtoday.com show notes, and that comes from someone with the username YPSI Willie. I don't know how you pronounce that. But last week, we booked Scopa Towers for September 9th through September 15th with the help of Small World Vacations, of course. As soon as we heard that the free dining was being offered, we jumped at it this year. My first experience with using an agent, they booked my table service meals and everything, which saved me calling at 7 a.m. Fantastic. There are 3 of us, and we are light eaters. Well, my wife and daughter are, at least. So we figured we'd use 2 table service each night with them sharing, and use the credits we saved on use the credits that we saved on Hoop-de-Doo, since we've never done it before. For one of the meals, we are having breakfast at the Crystal Palace. I can't pass up the made-to-order omelets and Mickey pancakes. That leaves us with a stray table service, and I have 5 months to figure out how to use it. It's an interesting use of the free dining plan. You know, and this is, but you know, it sounds like, and I'm putting words in his mouth, he or she's, it's a he, I think, his mouth here. And by saying that, if he had gone down the same trip and not been on the free dining plan, he wouldn't be going to as many sit-down meals.
Right.
And so, yes, he is saving a lot of money because, you know, he's not paying for them. But, you know, what would you have been paying otherwise? Or maybe, you know, if he has an annual pass, I don't know if he has one. It's hard to say. But, you know, it's just, I think, you know, Mike Scopa, you mentioned it earlier. You've got to really look at your particular situation, because we can't make a blanket statement that it's good. I mean, if this is your one trip for the year and you might not even go back for another year or two, yeah, free dining, it might be it would probably be a great time to go down. But if you're someone who, I think a majority of our listeners tend to go down somewhat often, and I think that you've got to look at how much money you'd be saving with things like an annual pass and discounts and the Disney Dining Experience card, and you've got to really add it up and keep in mind things like how much you're paying for the resort, and look at it and see how much money are you really saving, if any at all.
You know, there's another variable that we tend to overlook, Matt, and that is that you had said previously that, you know, the 4 of us, we go down quite a bit. We probably go down about 20 times a year if you add up all our trips.
Oh, sure.
And there are people out there who go once every year, go once every 2 years, go once every 3 years, go once in their lifetime. Now, if that's the case, then why would you want to get yourself in a situation where you have to use a sit-down meal every day, or you get to the point where you find yourself spending a lot more time in the restaurants than you really want to, because if you're doing counter service, quick service, or whatever you want to call it, you know, it's like within 45 minutes you're in and out. Whereas if you're sitting in a restaurant, you're there for an hour and 15 minutes. So that's another variable that I think a lot of people need to keep in mind, especially if you haven't been down there in a while and there are so many changes that have been taken place and you want to enjoy certain things. That's a key point there. You know, it's not always about food. Yeah, it's worthwhile going every once in a while to a nice restaurant, but if you have to do it every day, that can really get into your time.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us today. Again, I want to mention that this episode has been sponsored by Small World Vacations, whose team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners, and they're recommended by MouthSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars, so you can get your free price quote from Small World Vacations at www.wdwvacations.com, where the magic begins. We also want to take a moment to remind you that on April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time is our next live show. And in fact, this could be our last live show for a while with the way that things are going with internet radio and its future. So be sure to tune in and take an opportunity to call and talk to us on April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to find older episodes, read our shows, or send us your comments, you can visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.today.com. You can also email us at questions@www.today.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, and Mike Knoll, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.